Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Weinberg. I'm the CEO of California Forward, and I am delighted to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar, which is focused on this amazing new program to build racial and economic equity in homeownership that we've been working on with a broad variety of partners, some of whom you will meet today. California Forward is a movement to make California's economy and government work for everyone in all the state's regions. Home ownership is an issue that has bubbled up all across the state, and one that we're among the groups to help put back on the agenda in a big way through the work of the homeownership group of the California Economic Summit that we host each year. And I hope to see everyone in Bakersfield on October 27th and 28th for this year's summit. So thank you so much to the leaders of that work, including former CalHFA directors Tia Boatman-Patterson and Tim Su, Jennifer Hernandez, Jennifer Lasar, and now Adam Briones, that you'll be hearing from a little bit later in the hour. We're going to be having a series of presentations from some of the key partners in this work. We will then be having Q&A. So if you have questions for the panelists, please drop them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens. And we'll get to those, as many of them as we can. Here's the plan for this afternoon. I'm going to be handing it over to Treasurer Fiona Ma. Her shop and fantastic team there oversaw the RFP that came out of last year's legislation that looked to create the program, and they're wonderful partners in this. She's going to be talking more about why this is a prudent thing for the state and how it's going to be helping homeowners. I'm then going to be turning to Christopher Woods, who is the budget director for Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins. Obviously, Senator Atkins has been a huge champion on housing and home ownership, and really delighted that we have Chris here with us, obviously among the key people that finalized the budget. So instead of hanging out on a beach somewhere like he probably deserves, he's here presenting in a webinar to all of you. So then I'm going to come back and explain a little bit more of the technical nuts and bolts of the program, and then I will hand it over to Adam Briones to really talk about the impact on communities, because we work not only with key folks in the legislature and the treasurer's office and the administration, especially the current staff of CalHFA that was extremely wonderful and helping us put this together, but also made sure that we were working directly with the members of the community and the folks that work with them, housing counselors and lenders. So that is the run of show for us for the afternoon. And I am now going to turn it over to Treasurer Ma. Doesn't need a huge introduction, but I'll give one anyway for those of you who do not know her distinguished career in public service in its entirety. So obviously she was elected in 2018 with the most votes ever as state treasurer in the state's history, the first woman of color and the first woman CPA elected to the position. But before that, she was an elected member of the California Board of Equalization, member of the State Assembly from 2006 to 2012, serving as Speaker pro tempore from 2010 to 2012. Also was the Assembly Majority Whip and built coalitions during the state budget crisis to pass groundbreaking legislation that protected public education and the environment while also expanding access to health care. Also on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, where she led an effort to create the city's disadvantaged business enterprise program. So just an amazing set of accomplishments during an extremely distinguished career, and we're delighted to have her here today. So I'll turn it over to you, Treasurer Ma, to talk about this really important program, why we put it together, and why it'll be helpful for the state.
Thank you, Micah. Thank you for your hard work. I just got a copy of the report, and I want to thank Tim Schaefer and my team at the Treasurer's Office for leading this effort. I want to thank Speaker President Pro Tempore, Senate Leader Tony Atkins, and Chris Woods for giving us this opportunity to partner with them on this important initiative. My parents started saving for our futures as soon as we were born. And so they had extra money after I went to undergrad, and I put it to a down payment for a 2-unit building in San Francisco. And that started me on the path of home ownership and building equity, and has made a huge difference in my life. I am 56 years old, and I don't have to worry so much about retirement because of this, building equity, and also putting as much money as I can into my retirement savings accounts. So that was just my plug for saving more. I know that, even during the pandemic, people were saving more money, and it will pay off in the end. So in this program, California has an affordable housing problem. And the problem is not just limited to high cost areas of the state or lower income Californians. It also affects the middle class. My office has 2 agencies that work tirelessly to provide financial resources to support the construction, rehabilitation, and preservation of multifamily construction that is affordable. However, there is more to do. Affordable housing solutions are part of a mosaic of solutions that, taken together, will benefit all Californians. With incomes that fail to keep up with the cost of housing, and with housing costs that have increased almost 40% in the past 4 years, home ownership doesn't seem like an achievable part of the California dream for too many of our fellow Californians. The rate of appreciation of home prices is outpacing the rate at which younger families and first-time home buyers can accumulate a down payment. Luckily, there is a way to make home ownership possible, especially for communities of color and other traditionally excluded groups. It is called the California Dream for All program. This program uses a shared appreciation model to make home ownership and the creation of generational wealth possible. This fund allows the state to invest alongside first-time home buyers so that they can afford to purchase a home in California within their price range. This part is critical. It's not enough to make home buying possible in just some parts of the state, but purchasing a home needs to be accessible to everyone in all regions of California. The program is not a housing subsidy program, but rather a way for the state to invest in a revolving investment fund called the California Dream for All Fund. Unlike the unsound lending practices that led up to the bursting of the housing bubble in 2007, this program reinforces sound lending practices through a sharing of equity in the consumer's home purchase, rather than resorting to financial gimmickry to promote home ownership. Even better, the value created through appreciation will help new homeowners in California for decades to come. With a current investment, the state would help generate about 6 times the invested amount in household wealth for low and moderate income homebuyers. Ongoing mortgage loan payoffs would be directed to offering similar assistance to future homebuyers. We observed National Homeownership Month in June. Ensuring housing is attainable for California families in every region has been an important goal for my administration. Legislative leaders, including President Pro Tempore of the Senate, Tony Atkins, have championed this idea, and this webinar is about summarizing the work of our thought partners, California Forward. In 2021, their California Economic Summit, Expanding Home Ownership Work Group, recommending identifying scalable solutions to drive home ownership through the lens of equity and parity among racial and ethnic groups, gender, and also geographical regions. This is a great example of how to turn that recommendation into a reality. The California Dream for All program will also create an equity-focused, scalable model for the rest of the country. We love to lead here in California. Over the last few months, California Forward, in consultation with our office and other key stakeholders, spearheaded the design and development of the California Dream for All program framework. Equity is a term often used, but rarely with any real action behind it. The California Dream for All program demonstrates a way for us to truly achieve equity across the state by helping borrowers with down payment assistance so they can buy their first home and start to build equity. This will be a California dream come true for all. Thank you all for your hard work.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Treasurer Ma. And I really appreciate your calling out. Right. I mean, equity is a word that means a lot of things to a lot of people. At least one thing that it should mean is actual equity, right? I mean, achieving equity means sort of fundamentally reordering wealth, power, and social capital in society. And it's difficult to do that if we're not actually putting wealth in the hands of those communities that have either been structurally discriminated against through legal redlining or informal practices that are still in place today. So really excited about the program. So delighted that we had the opportunity to work with your fantastic staff in your shop. And also super delighted that we got the chance to work with the folks in the President Pro Tem's shop. So I'm going to bring on now Chris Woods. He's the budget director for the Senate President Pro Tem. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about why this program was so important, how it fits into the agenda that they've been working tirelessly on for years. And again, thank you so much for your partnership and welcome, Chris.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having me here today. And it really has been a great partnership with the Treasurer's Office in California Forward and the great team that you've developed to help create this. And really what the Pro Tem wants to always focus on is how do we make housing more affordable? How do we take that approach? And it's got to take an effort across the board, building more homes first and foremost and other things. But what can we do practically now to make home ownership more affordable and open the door to home ownership? And it really addresses a lot of things when we do that. Really what we look at is the last 40 years, the shrinking of the middle class. So much of the wealth has gone to the top. Life's gotten a lot tougher for the middle class and working folks. And so how do we get home ownership back into something that's available to people in an affordable way? And there's a lot of constraints. You can't legislate the market. Housing is going to cost what housing is going to cost. In the long run, we got to build more housing. That'll help in the long run, but you can't flip a switch and make housing more affordable overnight through legislation. We also know that the budget is constrained. There's not unlimited resources in the budget, so you can't subsidize your way to just having affordable home ownership either. And so the approach that the Pro Tem took with this is, well, how do we kind of deal with both of those constraints and still do something really meaningful to folks? And that is through a partnership that's been described really well by the treasurer. And what we do that is we don't interfere with the housing prices. The house price is what the house price is, but instead of it being a $500,000 house, from the homeowner's perspective, it'll look more like a $400,000 house. And all of a sudden, you've brought down the price of the house significantly with that. From a budget perspective, we aren't just putting money out there and it's gone and it won't come back. We put money in there and it'll revolve back. And so the state is putting money in, but we also have a stake in each one of these houses. And so when the money comes back to us, we'll have money in that fund, the state gets reimbursed, and then that money can go back out to partner with additional homes. So it kind of is an approach that doesn't interfere and recognizes that the housing market is the housing market, and it recognizes that there isn't unlimited resources for the state of California, but we're able to do what we can to actually make home ownership much more affordable. And we do it in kind of two ways. Very low or no down payment, which is great. Coming up with a big down payment when these house prices are so high is such a huge barrier. But even that, we know there's a low down payment programs that are out there already to people, and that's very good and very helpful. But with what comes with that is higher monthly mortgage payments, costly mortgage insurance, and that really is a burden to people. And then all of a sudden, even if you don't need a big down payment, now you're strapped with really high monthly payments, and that strangles middle-class families a lot. And so by doing this approach, you get a low down payment and you lower your monthly payments by as much as a third, probably over $12,000 a year for the typical house. House sale is what you would save on your monthly payments. So that's the background for how we wanted to come up with this. How do we make housing more affordable, help deal with the the income gap, the wealth gap, and recognize that the more people we get into home ownership, that means the more people we're giving them their first step to the middle class and building that generational wealth. And so everybody can kind of try to get to the stage of life where they have a little bit more of a comfortable retirement and able to pass things on to their family, and which is what generational wealth is all about. So look forward to hearing more of the details as we go on this, and really looking forward to how Cal HFA is able to implement this and do all the hard work to really make it work and succeed. So I'm really looking forward to the next this hour.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. And it has been a really, really cool partnership, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. So you've been hearing, okay, getting psyched up about what the program is all about, why the state did it. Let's spend just a few minutes explaining what the program is. So Jen, if you could pull up the slides, we'll go through just in a few minutes some of the details of the program, and then I'll hand it over to Adam to talk about some more of the community impacts. So again, we're going to be focusing on this California Dream for All program. Next slide, please. And we put together a dream team to work on the development of this proposal. We've mentioned that we had the opportunity to work with the State Treasurer's amazing staff and with the folks at the Pro Tem's office, and then just terrific folks at Cal HFA and BCNH and the other agencies that do work in this area. And then in terms of the project team, we have the folks here at California Forward, and then we have the California Community Builders. You'll be hearing from their CEO soon, and they focused in particular on the sort of impact on communities and making sure that it's designed in a way that will work for communities. And then we had two of the most knowledgeable, experienced consulting firms in this space doing amazing work all over the country. Actually, firms that have designed some of the first shared appreciation programs for public agencies, put together huge housing funds, done a tremendous amount of work on below market rate deed restricted housing, and that includes HRNA advisors and CSG advisors. So it was just fantastic to have, you know, the pointy-headed, wonky folks and a lot of folks with great connections to the community and, you know, this sort of regions up model to work together to do this project. Next slide. So we had a few goals here in terms of how we were going to be designing the program. And part of that was to make sure that we are providing a really meaningful amount of down payment assistance to the families that are assisted by this program. There are some good down payment assistance programs that are out there. Generally, the amount of money that they provide is somewhat limited. I think it's worth saying that you can pair this program with some of those other programs. So if you're getting 17% from this program, you can get another 3% from another program. But we really wanted to do something at scale at a much higher level than has been done before. Obviously, we want to support those households in doing wealth accumulation. So you'll see how the shared appreciation model works and how we make sure that we're not only making home ownership affordable, but we're also making sure that people actually do benefit from the wealth accumulation, even though they are sharing the appreciation with other homeowners who end up benefiting from the program. We wanted to maximize the number of households assisted, and we wanted to, as I was mentioning earlier, really complement the existing homeownership programs administered by Cal HFA and other agencies, and in some cases, local governments. Next slide. So how does this work? Well, I'll provide a couple of scenarios. So you're going to buy a house, and you know, through this program, you know, let's say it's about the median price house in California, which is insanely expensive. So, you know, let's say you're looking at something in the, you know, the low 800s. The, you know, first mortgage will come in at $629. Then the shared appreciation program pays 17% of your down payment, and the homeowner either has to come up with $24,000 or can get that assistance from another program. And I think one of the things that's critical to say here is that this will not only help people own homes that didn't own homes before, but make sure that they haven't spent down to their absolute last red cent in order to do it. Because there are obviously costs of home ownership beyond the mortgage, beyond the property tax, that are really important so that we can make sure that people are stable in their homes and home ownership, and it's not putting them into financial distress. So what happens, once they, have owned this home for a little while? Well, one of the things that was really important to us is to make sure that they had downside protection. This does not depend on the economy and home prices going up and up and up. We wouldn't want to design a program that only worked in those circumstances. And we were very focused on, what happens if you have, significantly less home price appreciation over, a 10-year period. Well, assuming you had, and this isn't going to happen, but assuming over a 10-year period, without adjusting for inflation, these are all absolute dollars, you had absolutely no appreciation whatsoever. The home buyer increases their equity. The shared appreciation program, sort of remains at the same place in terms of the funds that are available to assist homeowners. And so there is, no, significant loss. Of course, the appreciation, doesn't benefit the homeowner as much because there isn't any home appreciation, but it wouldn't in the case where there was no shared appreciation loan. So it was very important for us to protect the home buyers in that kind of a scenario. But the much more likely scenario is that we'll continue to see significant home price appreciation in California. Now, we absolutely, need to pause here and say that the number one thing that we need to do in California is build more homes. And that's a process. And we can't wait until that process, has played out to get folks into home ownership, creating generational wealth that have been locked out of this market. And I saw that there was a question about whether this is just for first generation home buyers or first time home buyers. Adam can maybe go into that a little bit more, but one of the big pieces of feedback that we had from the community is to make sure that we were focusing more broadly on first time home buyers, although through the ways that we're going to be reaching out, we're really looking to target those communities that may never have had home ownership in any of the generations of their family. So in the sort of scenario that we've been in California for the last 40, 50 years, the home buyer would have 20 times more equity than they put into the program. The fund itself would gain some equity, although again, we're really not looking to make this sort of a money-making program. As I mentioned, one of the key elements of this is that we want to focus on having the real appreciation share going to the homeowner. And so that's how this kind of works out technically in some of these different scenarios. And I'll come back to the chat, but as a general manner, we're looking at folks under 150% of AMI for this program, though it's important to understand that different levels of AMI have different impacts in different parts of the state. Next slide. So, to put some specific terms on this, if you got a down payment assistance from this shared appreciation program, there are a couple of things that I want to call out here. One is that it substantially lowers not only your down payment, but also your mortgage payment. So with a normal FHA loan, so many people, including myself, bought their first home that way. Their first mortgage payment was going to be about, in this scenario, like $4,500 a month. The shared appreciation program reduces it even more than, the most sort of generous forgivable down payment assistance programs that are out there to $3,200, not only because you're reducing the cost of the house through getting this shared appreciation, but also because you're putting down enough that you're not having to pay mortgage insurance. So the mortgage payment is much lower, and hence the required income in order to be able to afford the house drops precipitously from 120,000 down to 90,000. Now, one feature of these programs versus some of the other programs is by virtue of the fact that it is a shared appreciation program, it does take a little bit longer for houses to reach an exit where they've paid off a significant part of the loan. Next slide. And so the only last thing that I want to say about the program design before turning it over to Adam is to look forward. So this year, the state invested $500 million to get the program going from the state's general fund. The enabling legislation allows us to look at a bond issuance in order to increase the money in the fund. There's an interest and intention to continue to invest in this fund year over year. Our report modeled a total of a $10 billion investment in the program, either through bonds or general fund investment, and that $10 billion investment results under the sort of conservative appreciation scenario in 6 times that much household wealth that is developed for low and moderate income home buyers, again targeted to those communities that have been structurally locked out of this opportunity. We believe that if ultimately we end up with an investment around $10 billion, over $1 billion a year over 10 years, that this will result in $48 billion in loan originations and benefit almost 160,000 households. And that $48 billion is higher because of what Chris mentioned, that this money, that shared appreciation is not a money-making scheme for the state. It doesn't go back into the state's coffers. It goes back into this revolving loan fund to help buyers in the future. And then the punchline is ultimately that it helps create $134 billion in wealth at that level of an investment. So we're going to continue. We were absolutely delighted to see this included in the budget for this year. We're going to be continuing to advocate for the state providing additional resources towards this program, because we think that we really, really want to help these families. And the last thing that I'll say, and Jen, you can take down the slides as I hand it over to Adam, is that we want the program to provide a substantial amount of money to the state in terms of the money that is being provided to homes, but we also have to be careful that we're not putting so much money into the housing market that will be unnaturally inflating the cost of housing, and so that's why we settled on sort of $1 billion a year, which sounds like a lot of money, but California's a big old place, represents a pretty modest fraction. Under 2% of the homes that we purchase in any given year. And we think, therefore, we can help certain homeowners a tremendous amount without unnaturally inflating the marketplace. So that's some of the details. And we can come back. We've got a lot of questions coming in. But before we move on to the questions, I'm going to turn it over to Adam Briones. Let me just answer one of them real quickly that just popped up. So yeah, these numbers are based on our report's assumption that eventually the state will invest $10 billion in this program through some combination of general fund expenditures and bonds. The $500 million for this year in general fund actually gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of how we do this, and also understands that it's going to take some time to set up this program and really get it going, through CalHFA. So we're really excited about this initial investment, but we don't think that the work of the state is done in this area. So now I want to turn it over to Adam. Adam is the CEO of California Community Builders, a wonderful organization that focuses on racial equity throughout the state, especially in the areas of homeownership and small business growth. And Adam, how about you tell folks a little bit more about how we designed this to be responsive to community needs?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Micah. And good afternoon to everybody that's on this webinar. Again, my name is Adam Briones, and I'm CEO of California Community Builders. For anyone that's unfamiliar with CCB, we're a think and do tank that works to close the racial wealth gap by increasing housing and home ownership access for communities of color and low and moderate income families throughout the state. We're exceptionally proud to have been a part of the team selected to design the California Dream for All program. And I'm really excited to share more on why we think this could be have such a profoundly positive impact on underserved communities throughout the state. Before I start, though, I do want to make sure to take a moment to thank Treasurer Ma and her staff for their leadership in overseeing the creation of the shared appreciation mortgage concept this year. Thank you to Senate Pro Tem Atkins, Chris Woods, and everyone on the legislative team who played such a key role in shepherding this idea. Thank you to HRNA advisors and CSG advisors, our consultant partners on the project. And of course, last but very much not least, thank you to Micah, Lavera, and Araceli on the California Forward team for leading the project team that put all this together. To begin, I'd like to share two facts that I think are extremely important context and why we are so focused on equity in terms of this program. First, throughout the country, for every dollar of wealth held by white families, Black and brown families only have about 15 cents. And second, California today is about 2/3 people of color, and by 2040 will be about 70% people of color. And I share this because as we think about innovative programs to build wealth and home ownership for underserved communities throughout the state, especially communities of color here in California, it's not just the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do if, as Chris mentioned earlier, we want to maintain and strengthen a thriving middle class in our state in the decades to come. So that brings me to the California Dream Shared Appreciation Mortgage Program. It's been shown in numerous studies that the way in which most American families build wealth is through safe, affordable home ownership. And it's also been shown that one of the biggest barriers to home ownership, especially for low and moderate income families, is access to down payment capital. We believe that the California Dream program can provide direct transformational support to families currently shut out of the mortgage market. And this is really important, and provide an example for other states around the country for how to better connect underserved families with safe mortgage capital in a way that frankly no state is doing a great job of now. Thanks to Treasurer Ma and Senate Pro Tem Atkins prioritizing equity, CCB was brought on to apply an equity lens to the program design and ensure that it would benefit those families that have been shut out of the mortgage market due to historic redlining, as well as other systemic issues which disproportionately impact marginalized communities, especially families of color. To accomplish this, the CCB team spoke with diverse organizations throughout the state, including housing counselors, CDFIs, mortgage lenders, and realtors, who work to get working class families into home ownership day in and day out. And based on this feedback, I'd like to share 5 high-level points that make up the social equity components that the team proposed for the program, including items which we hope to see when the program is eventually rolled out. Because I think, as Micah said, we've gotten into the budget, but now the hard work is really going to begin as we make this program a reality. First, in the design phase, the program really needs to prioritize the needs of underserved communities, including previously redlined neighborhoods and historically marginalized groups. Because when you look at who is and is not well served by the housing market today, it's these families. And I'm really happy to share that this has always been front and center in the program design and amongst the program design team. Moving on to the implementation stage, the program needs to support and resource community-based organizations and incorporate housing counseling into every stage of the program to ensure, as Treasurer Ma said, that we're not just getting families into homes, but that they're able to stay there and build wealth. Next, the program needs to emphasize cultural competency as a key component of success. 2 concrete ideas related to this that we heard throughout our interviews are first, use translation services in marketing and counseling. That'll be critical, as many families that qualify for this program don't speak or read English as their first language. And connected to that, really make use of ethnic media outlets, which may be the most trusted outlets in certain communities and can reach those not well served by the mainstream media. Next, make sure the real estate industry understands and accepts and embraces the program. The California Dream program is meant to operate within the real estate market as it exists today. And real estate professionals need to be able to trust that the program will be run efficiently and not cause unnecessary delays in transactions. If this program works well, the real estate community will embrace it. If it doesn't, they won't. Lastly, social equity analysis needs to be built into the program and its evaluation from day one. Something we heard loud and clear from most everyone was that it's easy to design something that works well on paper, but if it's going to work, as Mike put it, in a big old state like California, that's super diverse and huge, then there really needs to be a commitment to continual, meaningful evaluation, especially related to social equity impacts. Ideas that we think are low-hanging fruit and would be fairly easy to implement are first, creating a community advisory council made up of housing counselors, realtors, CDFIs, and other lenders to ensure that consistent feedback is provided to the program administrator by the folks on the ground implementing the program. And second, use the data from the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act that is already collected and disseminated by lenders annually. This data can be used to determine who is actually benefiting from the program and where, and making tweaks as needed if the results seem to be out of line or not in line with the goals of the program. So in closing, I want to say thank you again to everyone that played such key roles in making this program a reality and for ensuring that equity is always front and center in the program design. Micah, I'll hand it back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Adam. Appreciate all the presenters today. And again, appreciate everybody's partnership on this project. This is really an example of how good public policy gets done. So we're going to be going into some of the details that are coming up in some of these questions. And one of the first questions was the thinking on general fund investment and/or bonds. And I know we've got some flexibility going forward on that. Chris, do you want to speak a little bit to what we're thinking in that area?
Right. Yeah. I think our first goal would be to fund out of the general fund every year. And as Micah mentioned, this year, $500 million, assuming we're not able to get the program up and running July 1st, we're not going to expect to have the whole $1 billion the first year. So the first year is $500 million. And then our goal is to appropriate $1 billion every year after that until we fill up the full kind of 10-year, $10 billion approach. But it also can make sense to use some of the borrowing abilities that Cal HFA already has to generate money in. If the budget really can't make $1 billion appropriation in a year, we can do the borrowing, and then that basically has the exact same practical impact, other than the general fund would have to pay some interest costs in the front end until the money comes back in. So either way, from the program perspective, hopefully it really is the same outcome. But we really do want to make sure this is an ongoing multi-year commitment of $10 billion over 10 years is where we're going.
Awesome. And we'll be working with you every step of the way. But it's already a huge commitment. It's already an order of magnitude larger than a lot of other programs. And this isn't what this webinar is about, but this isn't the only investment that we made in home ownership programs in California this year. So I think it's really exciting how a lot of these things work together.
It is. But I would just make this point. You're right. This is big. We're very happy with this $500 million, but this can't be it. We've got to keep it going. And it really does have to keep going to get that revolving nature going, and it becomes a self-sustained program after that. So we are only just beginning.
Great. Well, maybe I'll kick this one to you, Adam. You talked about this a little bit, but I want to maybe put an even finer point on this question of homebuyer workshops and seminars and homebuyer not only pre but post purchase assistance. This is sort of a softball. How important will that be to the success of this program?
Well, Micah, thank you for that hard-hitting question. Very important. And all jokes aside, one of the things that we did here is listen, if we're targeting first-time home buyers, they're excited to get into a house. They really are seeing an opportunity that they themselves and probably a lot of folks in their families haven't had before. And so one of the things that's going to be very important is that during the lead up to the home purchase, we need to make sure that they really understand the first position loan they're getting into, the California Dream loan they're getting into. And then what we think is innovative and very important is that after they close on their loan, really making sure that we're touching base with them every year so that they're understanding, where they are in sort of the payoff process. They understand that when they sell the home, that they are going to be paying back a share of their appreciation, because they may forget that in their excitement. And just really making sure that, once they become homeowners, we don't say, hope it works out well for you, but that we're touching base every now and again to make sure that the families that we helped put into a home are staying in a good position with their home.
Great, fantastic. I mean, there's one question, which is when is this all going to start? I mean, we'll see. Takes a little while, but I know that the administrating agency, Cal HFA, is interested in getting this up and running as quickly as they can. It's also something that it's extremely important to design in the right way. And so I don't know if any of the other panelists want to sort of comment on this, but one of the things is that I was mentioning a 17% loan. There's actually a little bit of flexibility in there. And it may be that in particular areas we want to look at a higher amount to make sure, again, that this is really helping folks in the highest cost areas of the state as well as in other areas of the state. But any other comments on sort of some of those more detailed program design features that'll be worked out by Cal HFA and sort of what that's going to mean for the timing of getting this out in the marketplace?
Right. We do intentionally have some flexibility in there. Just in general, maybe it makes sense for to cover the full 20% down payment if we can work that out, make sure we're not running afoul of any of the federal program requirements and things. But then also going up even above that, and for folks, it maybe makes it even more sense. Now, it is a trade-off. The more the program participates, the less equity the home buyer ultimately has. So it ultimately will just need to always be a trade-off, but there is flexibility because you don't know the exact circumstances. And in some cases, maybe extra partnership funds make sense, but not always. So, but the point is a flexible program to help it mold to meet the needs. But the more we put in for, particular partnership, that means there's less money to partner with other people too. So we've got to just kind of balance all those things as well. But flexibility is a key part of this to give Cal HFA the ability to really develop it in the best way possible.
Yeah, and we had a whole bunch of meetings with them, and that was the key message. And so definitely how the program was designed in order to provide that flexibility, and even just the flexibility to see how it's working in the marketplace, and then change the the terms or other aspects of the marketing of the program to make sure that we really are delivering on that promise of racial and economic equity. I think that's really important. There's a question about SB 1457. That's the Hertzberg bill. Certainly, that's something that we've all been watching closely and are generally supportive of. But this was proceeding on a parallel track. As I mentioned, there are a lot of different pieces of housing legislation, generally homeownership legislation, more funding for infill, more funding for adaptive reuse, more funding for below market rate deed restricted housing through increasing the low income housing tax credits from the state level. This is just one program that kind of fits into the mosaic of different housing solutions. I don't know, Adam or Chris, if you want to talk about anything else that's happening in Sacramento that you think would be especially useful, either alongside or in conjunction with this program.
Well, that Hertzberg bill is a good bill, and it's still in the process and things, and that'll be interesting to see how that goes. And it's great. The budget deal we just passed last night, hundreds of millions of dollars for affordable housing programs. The Cal Home program in particular. There's also an existing down payment assistance program, and so a lot of good investments throughout the affordable housing budget. So this is just one piece, and an important piece and a new piece, and one that we want to build on and really get going as the years go by.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just say that Senator Hertzberg has been a real visionary when it comes to addressing some of these housing issues. And I do think that, to your point, Micah, this is very much a demand side program, and that to solve some of the other underlying issues that we face in the state, we do need to build more housing. So I think that there are a few very exciting upzoning bills and other bills that we think could potentially create more meaningful production in the years to come. Although certainly it's never an easy process.
Yeah, the main thing that we need to do is build more homes. There was a question about, well, what happens if the if the homeowner has to sell when the house is underwater? That's actually one of the features of this program, right? So the program makes the money through sharing in the appreciation, right? So no appreciation, the program doesn't make any money. Now the homeowner, it doesn't solve the problem that, the house is underwater, but it's a very different circumstance than if you had a second mortgage or just a first mortgage that you had to pay back all of, right? So it does, even in a completely underwater scenario, put the home buyer in a better position than they would be if they had just a first mortgage or a conventional sort of first and second mortgage on their property. And that was a big thing for us, because we're interested in wealth accumulation, but we're also really interested in making sure that we don't destroy wealth. And one of the sort of saddest things about the Great Recession was that, when you look at especially communities of color, there were, hundreds of billions of dollars or trillions of dollars of wealth wiped out by that recession through home ownership. So it was really important to us, obviously, to have the positive upside scenario, but also to be very careful on the protections for the homeowners. Anything else that Adam or Chris, you want to say about that?
No, well said. I mean, yeah, we're a partnership. The house price goes up, we share it. It's shared. If it goes down, we share it, and so that's a good thing. Yeah.
And in our conversations with housing counselors throughout the state, that was a really important aspect as well. Folks that are taking on a California Dream mortgage, they won't be paying interest. And then to your point, Micah, if the house doesn't appreciate, they don't owe anything. So they're really going to see hopefully a lot of benefit in a positive market. And then in a negative downside market, they'll really be protected in a way that unfortunately doesn't happen, in the private sector. So it's really exciting the protections this program can offer.
Yeah, and that was the thing that maybe I can. Is there a process to scrutinize people that are going to invest in this program? Absolutely. If there's one thing that the state does is scrutinize the heck out of everything. But I think that there are a number of different types of shared appreciation programs. There are some pretty small local shared appreciation programs on the marketplace in some cities and counties in the Bay Area in particular. There's actually programs elsewhere in the United States, in Minnesota, for example. There's also a massive shared appreciation program in the United Kingdom. So, this is not an entirely new thing. However, when these programs are not publicly funded, when they're more privately funded, the terms are okay for the homeowners, right? Because the kind of privately funded programs have to produce a certain return in the way that the state has a real public purpose in this. And I think the state will produce a return. Of course, that return will get plowed into helping further homeowners. But this is distinct in its features from some of the products that exist on the private market that are okay, but that are really targeted more at middle and higher income home buyers, and not at folks that are really going to be able to struggle to either buy a home to begin with, or actually afford that home going forward. All right. Just kind of looking through some of the questions that have come in here in the Q&A and in the chat. But I think that's a lot of the questions that we've gotten about this program. And there was just a question around, prefab homes. I think, just again, to default back to the sort of main answer, the more homes, the better. Like, we're, interested in prefab homes, factory produced homes, conventionally produced homes, multifamily homes. And, one of the, program features is to allow for this to be, beyond just single family detached homes. So, the more the merrier is what I think we would say in that. And there have been a lot of exciting developments in prefabricated homes. Of course, there are also a lot of costs in producing a home beyond simply the fabrication of it. This program won't solve all of those problems simultaneously. But it is designed to be helpful in that regard. So there was I don't want to get too far into the weeds of this. This is not really the same as a fixed rate mortgage, But in terms of the kind of question of adjustable rate, it's the terms do not change over time. There's no balloon payment. Once you as a homeowner have a shared appreciation loan, the terms that you got in the shared appreciation loan are the terms that you're going to have for the life of the loan. There's not some sort of surprise where it's like, oh, surprise, if you sold it in the 7th year, you actually give all your money to the state. No, the terms that you get are the terms that you're going to keep. And that's another thing that we wanted to be very careful about. Just on the question about eligibility requirements, I believe that's also something where we left a little bit of flexibility for the program administrators within the trailer bill, correct?
Yeah, yes. The trailer bill is pretty, it's not very prescriptive. It's pretty broad to let the Cal HFA do their thing.
Yeah.
Micah, if I could just throw a quick note on that. That was also another area of real positive feedback from community organizations throughout the state, especially in places like the Bay Area and Los Angeles, where the feeling was that for a family, that was making above 80% of area median income, definitely not rich, but weren't well served by some of the existing programs and really not able to compete in the market. So that flexibility around income just received a ton of positive feedback from housing counselors and other housing folks.
Great. Yeah, no, it was a real joy to be able to get to do this process in this way, right? Particularly given how much policy we do through the budget, how much policy we do through trailer bills. So we were able to do public hearings on this. We were able to do public engagement around this. We were able to work with different members of the legislature. We were able to work with the administrating agencies to really put together something that we have very strong confidence is going to be an important part of the suite of opportunities that will exist for home buyers, and really focus again on the equity part of equity, which is a really crucial part of the equation. All right. Well, I think we've gotten through a lot of the questions. Any final comments, Chris, as you think about the coming years of the implementation of this program and other efforts to increase equity throughout the state?
No, I just really look forward to seeing how this all comes together as the years go by, and also just a kind of a note on how we did it this year, and with the great teamwork that went into this, and it all because last year's budget we started this, and all we did last year is said, hey, Treasurer's Office, get this organized, get something going, and having this conversation going. And I think it's really important for all advocates out there that look to do things through the budget. It really can help to take your time, get things started one year, and then build on as the years go by. This is a big deal to the pro tem on getting this thing done, but you took her time starting last year, going this year, just as we did when she was speaker. We got the earned income tax credit going. Started that 1 year ahead of time, and it got into law the next year. And so I just recommend everybody out there, you're looking to do big things for the budget, take your time and get things done right is sometimes a better approach.
Great. Adam, final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that oftentimes these problems can really feel intractable and unsolvable. And I just think I feel really honored that my little organization got to play a role in what I think is going to be some really meaningful work and a really meaningful program that's going to make a difference in a lot of families' lives.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to both of you. It's been an amazing partnership. It's a really fun accomplishment. In these days and times, and we won't go into the craziness of some of what's going on in the world, but it's good to know that there are places, and California is one of those places, where people are interested in working together across the public sector, private sector, the community, to really build a better state for everyone who lives here in all the state's regions. So thank you so much for your partnership in this, and excited to see this program come together.